This often surprises people, but for my husband and I, adoption was actually our plan A. It was just something we both really felt called to do and wanted to pursue. However, we were quickly discouraged when we started looking into adoption and realizing how extremely costly it is. I mean, sometimes it is anywhere from 40 to 60K. I mean, seriously, who can afford that? It's wild. It quickly felt like adoption was not going to be an option for us, despite us really wanting to do it. I mean, after all, I was a teacher, my husband was in grad school and then became a pastor. These aren't exactly the most lucrative fields, let's be honest. The problem was we were willing to adopt, but we were unable financially to make that happen. And I know there are grants and things you can apply for, and it's very possible we could have gone that route, but it just all felt so overwhelming and so discouraging. And then I heard about adopting from foster care, and specifically adopting waiting children from foster care. This concept blew my mind because it was not something I was familiar with. I knew about foster care, but I thought that you could only adopt from foster care if you became a foster parent for many years and then eventually one of the kids you fostered became available for adoption. And what I didn't know at the time was the fact that there are waiting children in foster care. Their parental rights have already been terminated and they're sitting in the system waiting for a permanent adoptive family. And so there was a family from our church who had adopted 2 of their daughters this way. And they sat us down, they invited us over for dinner, and they just laid everything out on the table for us and talked about adoption. And one of the things we brought up to them was, I don't know that adoption is financially feasible for us. Like, how did you guys make this work? And they were like, oh, adopting from foster care is completely different from other routes of adoption when it comes to the financial side of things. And I was very intrigued. So they started explaining to us, and oh my goodness, it completely blew my mind. Not only is adopting from foster care very affordable, sometimes free, there's also financial support that the government provides to help you care for your kids long term. Like, what? How is this possible? This felt like the best kept secret in the adoption world, and I just did not understand from all of my research, how did I not know this? And all of a sudden, our distant dreams of adoption that seemed basically unachievable were suddenly about to come true. So if you are anything like I was when I first learned about this, you may have no idea how financially possible adoption could be for you. Today, I am going to break down the costs associated with adopting from foster care and the financial benefits that might make adoption a reality for your family. Hey there, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Katie and I'm a foster care adoption consultant and also an adoptive mom to 3 awesome kids. I offer one-on-one adoption consultations for families like yours who just want to understand, how can I adopt from foster care? Is adoption right for me? Which path should I take to adoption? How do I find an agency that I can actually work with? So if you're someone asking any of those questions, I highly recommend you book a consultation package with me. I would love to help you. I would love to walk you through everything from A to Z. You can check out a link in the description below to book your consultations and get the help you need right away. So let's talk through some general info about the finances involved with adopting from foster care. First of all, in some states, especially when you go through the state agency, adopting from foster care can be completely free. I know, you heard me right. It sounds crazy, but completely free. In other states, it can be a very low fee. It's not uncommon that we find states where it can be $5,000 or less. And you have to realize I have worked with people from well over half of the 50 states in the US, and I'm very familiar with the costs associated within different states. And for us, it was about $5,000 where we are in Ohio. It can, however, be higher. For other states, especially when you're working with private agencies, you can sometimes see higher prices, like somewhere between the $5,000 to $15,000 price point. And I would say $15,000 is very much on the high end, but I have seen more of that, especially in big city areas. You might notice that in somewhere like LA, you might see that in somewhere like Washington, DC, Chicago, sometimes in New York. There can be higher prices, just like how everything else in those places seems to be more expensive too. Sometimes it pays to live in Ohio. We might be the butt of a Gen Z joke, but I'm telling you. However, even if your adoption fees are a bit higher where you live, there are so many financial supports involved in foster care adoption that honestly, it's very doable for most people. And this is coming from someone who, when we first started the adoption process, we had almost no money. So what are these financial supports available? Well, the first one is the adoption subsidy. A lot of people are familiar with the fact that when kids are in foster care, if you're a foster parent, the government provides you with some financial support to support that child as they're in foster care. In some states, it's barely enough to get by. In other states, I feel like it's well above what it necessarily needs to be. But I was under the impression that that was only for while the child was in foster care. What I didn't realize is there's such thing as an adoption subsidy. And this adoption subsidy actually goes all the way until the child is 18, or in some cases where they have special needs, until the age of 21. And this is an amount of money each month that you will receive to help care for your child and provide for your child's needs. In some states, like where I live, it is a negotiated rate. And it is based on a lot of things: the child's needs, how long they've been in foster care, the different types of difficulties that they may face due to their history, all sorts of things. In other states, which I think is better, it's a set rate based on a scale. So it may be based on different factors that the child qualifies for based on their circumstances. And this amount is provided by the sending state of the child. So if you live in California and you adopt a child from California, that money is coming from California. If you live in California, but you adopt a child from Ohio, that money is coming from Ohio. The nice thing too is that even if you move, let's say you move to a new state, you move somewhere else, that subsidy still follows you. It doesn't depend on where you live as much as where the child was originally from. And let me tell you, for a teacher and a pastor, that adoption subsidy was huge for us. It really made it possible for us to be able to adopt 3 kids, to take on a sibling pair, 2 kids at once, because financially, we just weren't quite there yet. We were pretty young and our careers were still being established. Neither of us chose a very lucrative career, right? But we were ready and able and willing to be parents. And so if you're in a situation like I was, this is an awesome thing to be able to do, because it can really help you facilitate that adoption and give your kids a great life when they move in with you. I also know that sometimes there are people who say like, oh, people adopt for the money or foster for the money. I can't imagine a world where the money is worth doing it if you're not actually interested in adopting, if you don't really care about the kids, because it's a decent amount sometimes. Like for us, because we made so little money as a base, it was like a huge help for us. Like we felt like, oh my goodness, this is way more than we would have imagined. It really helped us because we were pretty frugal. I just still can't imagine though, that if you were like, I don't really care about these kids, I just want money. There are easier ways to get money, my friend. Easier ways. Do not do that, because that's not what it's for. Because as an adoptive parent, you do put up with a lot. You have to deal with a lot. There's a lot of struggles that you're going to face. And believe me, there's not an amount of money that's going to be worth it if your heart isn't in it and you don't care about these kids. So hopefully, I don't think the people watching this are those type of people, but I feel the need to say it just in case. Medicaid is the second thing that you can get as a financial support for your child. The state will often provide, just as they provide a subsidy, Medicaid for your child until they are 18, or in some circumstances until they are 21. Now, there are pros and cons to this. I have found that it is very hard to find medical providers who will accept Medicaid. There's usually like a cap on how many people they'll take who have Medicaid. You have to call around to find the doctors. You don't have as many choices. But once you find someone who's good, almost everything is covered under their Medicaid. It's a really nice peace of mind, especially now for me being an entrepreneur and having my own business. I don't have the really nice health insurance that I used to have through my job. And so it's just peace of mind for me to know that my kids are covered no matter what. No matter what job circumstance comes along for me or my husband, they are going to be covered and have that health insurance. And you're still welcome to put them on your own health insurance that you get through your job or that you're purchasing on your own. When I was a teacher, I had very, very good health insurance. And so I did have my kids on that for a while, and that became their primary insurance and Medicaid became their secondary, which was really nice because, again, if something wasn't covered under that primary insurance, sometimes that secondary Medicaid would kick in and then we wouldn't have to pay anything. So that is a huge benefit, really helpful if you're just someone who financially is not in the absolute greatest situation. You always have that backup. Another financial benefit that some states offer is a post-adoption service. So this would be, for example, let's say your child developed a major mental health disorder and they needed some sort of outpatient behavioral therapy, or they needed to go to a residential treatment facility for a time, those things can be extremely, extremely expensive and not doable for the average family. And so in some states, they actually have a post-adoption subsidy you can get, you can request based on your child's needs, and you can, ask for it. This is not in every state. It is in Ohio where I live. So I know that if something ever happened down the road and my kids really needed a lot more support than I was able to financially provide, simply because they were adopted from foster care, we're eligible to apply for this special assistance, which again, I think gives a lot of peace of mind because we never know what our kids could go through. A lot of mental health issues don't even come to the surface until the teenage years. And so we don't always know what our children are going to need down the road. And the subsidy honestly isn't going to cut it for things like residential treatment, which can be thousands of dollars a month. So that is a really cool option to have if you need it down the road. And like I said, this isn't necessarily in every state, but it's something worth looking into. And the fourth benefit financially of adopting, and this is adoption in general, but adoption from foster care, is the adoption tax credit. I've mentioned this before on my channel, and I just want to be the first to say, I am not an accountant. I'm not even good at math, let's be real. And I pay a very nice accountant in my town to do my taxes for me, and he was knowledgeable about the adoption tax credit. So he was able to help us get the most back from our tax return due to that adoption tax credit. So let's say that you had to spend $15,000 on your agency fees to adopt from foster care. What's nice is you may be able to recoup some of that through this adoption tax credit. It just has to happen the year after you officially finalize the adoption. So as long as you were able to finalize the adoption in that tax year, then when you do your taxes, you can start to get that tax credit. And some of it even rolls over. I'm not going to go into all the details of that because I am not that knowledgeable about it. So definitely reach out to an accountant. Ask them before they do your taxes if they're familiar with the adoption tax credit, if they have done it before for other families. But this can be a great way to kind of, like I said, reimburse yourself for some of those expenses that you did at the beginning. Hey there, it is Editing Katie, which is a much less put together Katie than the one you normally see in the video. But I realized that I didn't talk about how in some states and for some kids, depending on when they were adopted or their situation before they were adopted, can get free in-state college tuition. Now, this is a pretty limited number of places that actually offer this. If I can include a little graphic here explaining the ones that do, I will. But just know that can be an option as well, and it's definitely worth looking into for your specific state. And then a bonus one, because I don't know how common this is. This is not something that I'm super familiar with, but at least for us, when we went through our foster care adoption training, we were actually paid for our hours of training. It was so weird. It was like when we sat in those 3-hour-long classes to do our training classes, we were paid an hourly rate for attending those classes, which kind of blew my mind. But for us, it was super nice because we just put that right back into our adoption fund. And so we just knew, we built that in, we're getting paid this much per hour for all these hours of training. We're going to put that right back in to our adoption fees. So as you can see, when we heard about this from our friends, we were absolutely blown away. We could not believe how tangible adoption would be for us with these supports. And since then, God has blessed us with jobs that have provided a little more money, not a ton, not a lot, but in those first couple of years, those adoption subsidies, that support was absolutely amazing. And we honestly really needed it to be able to provide for our kids to the level we wanted to be able to provide for them. So I hope this video encourages you if you're someone who's felt kind of held back from adopting just by finances. It is possible for you. And if you are someone who really is like, yes, this sounds like the right type of adoption for me, I want to get started, I would absolutely love to work with you. So again, click that link in the description below. And if you're not subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe, because I'm really close to 10,000. It's a really exciting milestone for the channel. And I basically share content like this all of the time, just preparing you to adopt from foster care. Since you made it all the way to the end of the video, that means you're my favorite. Don't tell the others. And I like to ask a secret question at the end of the video to see who my people are. And since we talked about money today, let's talk about what is your favorite fun thing to spend money on, because we all have our favorites. I know people who get their nails done all the time. I do not. My nails are sketchy. Don't look at them. But one of the things that I absolutely love to spend my money on, if I have any extra, is traveling. So that would be mine. I'd love to hear what yours is in the comment below. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing week, and I will see you next time.